Alright, so in this session we're going to look at chords, and by now you've been practicing your scales. You have been learning all the different areas where the notes are laid out sequentially and numerically, also alphabetically. So now it's time to start taking those notes and putting them together. So if you don't know what a chord is basically nothing more than a series of notes all put together, played simultaneously, and that's what forms a chord. So if I have A, C sharp, and an E, I now have A major. So we're looking at major chords, and we'll look at some other chord types, probably about 4 or 5 different ones here, if not more, and we'll begin to learn how to manipulate a major chord into the different types of chords, or a different version of that same chord. A lot of what you'll see me doing is adding a pinky thumb octave to the root chord that I'm in. So just wanted to point that out in case you were wondering. You can also utilize the same method in your playing, and if it's awkward right now, no shame in that. You can just use one finger as well. Okay, you won't have the depth, but as long as you're holding that root note, then you're fine. Okay, so starting with that, I have my low octave to the key that I'm going to play in. Now with my right hand, there are 3 main positions, if you will, to looking at chords. Now this is C major, and I have a C, an E, and a G. Now we talked about scales, so if you think back to utilizing your scale, what you have is the 1, the 3, and the 5. Okay, and the 1, the 3, and the 5 will always make up that major triad. So if you selected any key randomly, you go to that and you look at its major scale in that form, and you select the 1, the 3, and the 5 in that scale. So like I said before, it's going to make sense now numerically, because you know your scales, or you've been practicing your scales to the point of seeing it broken down numerically. So that's where you have to know both letters and numbers. Very important in music to kind of wrap your head around being able to see what a chord is made up of and how to change the chord. So what we'll do is we will start off by getting you to use all the major chords in their root position in time. And that's something that you can apply to your practices as well. So what we'll do is we'll start out in A, and I'll apply the rhythm, and then we'll just go sequentially up the keyboard in all 12 keys. That way there you won't miss out on all the different keys and their root position. And then what we'll do is we'll talk more about how to manipulate the chord, change it up, and show you a different version of that same major chord, and we'll move on from there. Okay, so starting in A, we have A major in its root position. Okay, and remember, I'm going to hold the bass note as I go to each interval, and then we'll go all the way up to all 12 keys. Okay, here we go. A, now B flat. Okay, remember the letters and the numbers and the sequence. These are all root positions. This is B. Now C. C sharp. D. D sharp or E flat. E major. F. F sharp, G, G sharp, or A flat, and back to A. Okay. So I'll do that once again, and we'll sort of double time it so you can not just do it a little bit faster, but I'll also incorporate some, I'll arpeggiate it, if you will, along the way. So those are, 2 or 3 main examples of how you would want to practice just major triads, and not to mention forwards and backwards, okay? So once again in time, starting with A major, and we'll go backwards. And A. Okay, so with that, each chord is not just a major, but it has different versions of that. Like I said, you want to go forward and backward in your practice. Just, if anything, it helps you get the sense of movement, so you don't get stuck in any one range of the keyboard, because over time, if you want to become a good keyboard player, you're going to have to learn to branch out and utilize scales and movements, and perhaps go into some uncharted territory where maybe you were a little bit afraid or nervous to go in. But it's okay, because you don't necessarily have to go there and live there. You can always come back to a centralized place. But it's important, because if you're just going to leave, if you're going to own like a larger keyboard, and you're going to leave big portions of it just dormant, then you're not really using the full potential of it. You're kind of missing out on all the added things that you can be putting into your music.